Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order, the regular Champaign County Board, Thursday, May 24th, 2018. The time is 6:35. Roll call, please.
Furtado? Here. Goss?
Here.
Harper?
Here.
King? Here. Marsh?
Here.
McGuire? Here. Mitchell? Here. Patterson?
Here.
Petrie?
Present.
Rector? Here. Rosales?
Here.
Storr? Here. Summers? Here. Tinsley?
Present.
Anderson? Here. Clemens? Here. Clifford? Here. Coert?
Present.
Cruz? Here. Esri?
Here.
Weibel?
President, we have a quorum. Just want to point out that there's 21 of us, so we require 14 votes for a supermajority. For any item, it requires a supermajority on the agenda. Tonight's prayer is a short one because I think this is going to be a long meeting.
Make it a good one.
I thank that we have shortprayersforyou.com. That's true. God, help me to do things with excellence, with care, and without delay. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois will convene on May 24th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Loud Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Seek approval of the agenda and the addendum. Moved by Mr. Esri, or second by Ms. Furtado. I want to point out, I want to move the item number 13 to the top of the agenda. That is first thing under standing committees. That's the new agenda. The one that came in your packet would be item 15. If you look at the one that came in your packet, because essentially is all that would be the finance item. It would place the nursing home vote would be the first thing nursing home sale would be the first thing we'd discuss and vote on. Further discussion? See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, date and time of next regular meetings, the county facilities on Tuesday, June 5th, 6:30. ELUC, Thursday, June 7th at 6:30. Highway and Transportation, Friday, June 8th at 9 o'clock. The committee of the whole is Justice, Social Services, Police, Personnel, and Appointments, and Finance on Tuesday, June 12th at 6:30. And finally, the next regular county board meeting is Thursday, June 21st at 6:30. Okay, next up is public participation. Public participation is limited to 1 hour. Each person gets 5 minutes max. However, we've got probably 20 people who want to speak. So that means 3 minutes per person if you wish to speak. So I would hope that you would come up and say what you want to say succinctly and then move on so the other person can follow you quickly. First up is Scott Tapley.
Hello, I'm Scott Tapley. I think a lot of you know who I am, some of you who don't. I was on the Champaign County Board for about 10 years. About 20 years ago was the start of that. And I also led the referendum effort to sell the Champaign County nursing home. So for me, and I think a lot of people in this community, I think tonight is a very exciting night. I think you all are very close to making a very important major decision that's got positive long-term benefits for not only the residents of CCNH, but also the employees, the taxpayers of the county. I want to applaud the massive effort that's been put forth by the Champaign County staff and the county board members who have dealt with this. You all have spent hours and hours on this. You've put together, the staff has put together incredible materials. that are demonstrating a very extensive and very rigorous due diligence process. And my hat's off. And I tell you what, when I was on the county board, I very frequently was very impressed by a number of county employees. One of them's here tonight, Deb Busey. I can't even think of how many huge multi-million-dollar projects that have come to completion under Deb's leadership. And this is one more. So my hat's off. I applaud everyone. I think it's just fantastic. I do want to address some of the last-minute attempts to sabotage the deal that have been circulating. There have been emails going around. It's really unfortunate because it's just an attempt to sow doubt, cause confusion, and create a false need to delay the sale. One of the leaders of the losing side of the referendum has contacted an investment banker and given them what I would characterized as an incomplete picture of what's going on here, and gotten that investment banker to suggest that the county's due diligence is inadequate, that other ideas need to be examined, that new business plans should be considered. And I'll tell you what, if you've got any doubt whether or not the investment banker's been given a true and accurate portrayal of what's going on here, he's been communicating with the same people who have repeatedly and falsely claimed over and over again that the CCNH isn't really losing money, that everything would be okay if the state just paid its bills, and on and on and on, things that just aren't true. And if there was really a legitimate effort to try to get an alternative valuation for the county to maximize the proceeds sales, this would have been done months ago, not just this week. Not 3 days ago at the 11th hour. So I would hope that you would dismiss that as an obvious effort to foot drag and just try to derail the sale, which is, I think, made obvious by the other thing that she sent around the county this week, talking about trying to create partnerships with other healthcare providers. That's already been tried. It was a year ago. It's done. It's not happening. And the people that were involved in that have just as big a conflict of interest as the investment banker, who, if you did delay the sale and looked for an alternative valuation, could get the contract. SAK is allegedly working with Cathy Manuel to work with other healthcare providers, and SAK obviously has a conflict of interest. Cathy Manuel has no credibility because she's another one that's been going around making false statements about the nursing home's financial situation. And so I've only got a minute left, but I just want to talk about one more thing. About 20 years ago, there was a very analogous situation to the sale of CCNH. A Republican-controlled county board created the Champaign County Public Health District despite their constituents' overwhelming opposition. Now, yes, they did it after almost 2 years of foot dragging. They did it after trying to come up with every possible way to avoid doing the right thing, but they ultimately did the right thing, created the health district, and I think it was my second or third meeting on this board. It was done without a roll call vote. You know, people publicly lamented how much they didn't want to do it and how mad their constituents were going to be, and they went ahead and did the right thing, and there wasn't a roll call, and there wasn't any big contentious vote on it. And so anyway, I just hope you all will follow that precedent. I think the voters have spoken. I think it's time to carry out the will of the voters, and I think it's time to set all of the politics aside and do what's right for all of the stakeholders involved in the nursing home, not just the residents, but the employees of the nursing home and the employees of the county whose jobs continue to be jeopardized by the financial situation next door. Thanks for your time.
Next up is Cathy Manuel, and yes, I did shuffle them, and this is how it turned out.
Okay. I'm Cathy Manuel. You all know that. I have really 2 points to make. One point I want to make is about the financials. I hear so many comments about what the financials are and aren't, and I had help from Diane in going through and finding the locations for the audits, the county audits, financial audits, And I just want to, I'm going to just take less than a minute to read off. Here are the financial results for the nursing home for the last 10 years. Two different ways of looking at these, at least there's a million different ways, but two normal ways are to look at the cash flow and the net income. Here's the cash flow starting in 2008. Cash flow was positive $30,000 in 2008, positive positive $513,000 in 2009, positive $317,000 in 2010, negative $556,000 in 2011, positive $348,000 in 2012, negative $431,000 in 2013, positive $35,000 in 2014, negative $338,000 in 2015, negative $54,000 in 2016. I'm not saying those are great numbers, but anybody who tells you we're losing $1 million a year is not looking at all of the numbers. If I go to net income, which includes depreciation in it, 2008 it was a negative 1.8 million, big time. 2009 it was a positive 715,000. 2010 it was a positive 5,600. 2011 it was a positive 864,000. 2012 it was a negative 844,000. 2013 negative 889,000. 2014 negative 92,000. 2015 negative 1.2 million. And 2016 negative 1.8 million. So for a 10-year average, the cash flow was a negative 15,000, and the net income was a negative 558,000, obviously with deterioration over the last 3 years. So I'm not suggesting that we're in good financial shape, but I do want to clarify the comments that I hear and then I see where we are losing millions of dollars each year. That's not what's happening. And I'm here to suggest that based on that, because some of those financials are used sometimes to say the nursing home has never made any money, it can't make any money, it can't be successful. And it is not successful right now. I am grateful to the county board and the staff for saying we got to do something based on 2015, 2016. That's clear. We identified that as a nursing home advisory board in 2015, asked to change the management company. County board did change the management company, went out and got a consultant. The consultant recommended that you get the healthcare providers together to see what could be done. We looked at trying to do that, but the healthcare providers in our community were in somewhat of a turmoil at that point in time, and Covenant was on going through new ownership and knew that they would be being sold. So they really could not come to the table, said that. We sat down with the CEO, said he wished he could do something, needed a good nursing home, but he wasn't in a position while the facility was being sold to step up and do anything. In the meantime, we have been meeting with Carl, and my plea is, if I were in your spot, I would be saying we have to do something. I just want to make sure you don't do something that you regret afterwards, and as you're trying to explain to your constituents maybe some bad outcomes that you say, well, we didn't have any other choice. I think we do have one other choice. We have had OSF come forward. OSF and Carl are both healthcare providers with a lot of resources, and they are willing to sit down and go through the very same process that McLean County went through. And I would just like to say I don't think it's too late. You haven't made a decision yet. I agree that you can't keep on going the way we're going, but I'd like to see if there isn't a better solution. Thanks.
Mr. David Laker. And Kip Polk, you're next.
Hi, I'm Dave Laker. I think most of you know where I stand on the nursing home. I'm still concerned about Sue. That's been my interest all along, and it's still that way. I've come to realize, though, that saving in a nursing home is a difficult and unthankful task. The numbers that I see, I have seen, indicate to me that if we had the resources to pay off the vendors, we would not have enough income coming in to sustain this nursing home, given the present population and employees. And that doesn't leave us too many options. But if we are to sell a nursing home, we need to pick the best group we can to do that. I listened to a proposal a couple of weeks ago, and from that, and from some emails that I've seen, some information in the community and a few other areas, I don't think we ought to sell to this group. That doesn't mean we shouldn't sell. It just means that we need a better group. I don't believe what they represent themselves to be is in fact a truth. I think that the residents of the nursing home and the people in this room will regret it if we sell to this group. Now, this is a personal opinion of mine, and y'all know I've got plenty of opinions, and you're welcome to them. But I really do think that you got to do your homework on this one. I'm pretty simplistic on some of these things. To me, if it walks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, there's a better than even chance that it might be a waterfowl. And I think that's what we've got in Chicago, in the environs. Again, that's my personal feeling. I was involved in business for over 20 years, and I bought parts from people all over the United States and sold all over the world, and mostly with a handshake. I didn't do very much business in Cook County or the Chicago area. That's my personal feeling about it. And I think if we get in bed with these people, we will regret it. The thing, though, is our residents, a lot of our residents can't even talk about it, let alone regret it. And I'm always going to be here to remind you if it doesn't go right. I mean, I promise you that. I think there's some people in this room that are well-intentioned and sincere on trying to do something good and right. So let's not get led down the path of getting in bed with the wrong group just for financial reasons. Now, I know finances is what's driving us into this thing, and we've had 18 or 20 years of miserable, dysfunctional management of this problem. Now, we can quit talking about that, I guess, because you can't do anything but get rid of the home and make the problem go away. I suppose that's enough said for tonight, and I hope you heard me. That's all.
Kip Polk
Thank you.
and Stuart Levy, you're next.
Good evening. I'm Kip Polk, Champaign County citizen, Chairman Weibel, and county board members. Last week I spoke about how I believe that selling the nursing home to the offerors will free it to realize its true potential. I have no allegiance to the offerors, but they are the only ones that stepped forward with a written offer that complies with all the protective conditions that were included in the RFP. Given the breadth of the marketing that was done, I don't know when or where you'll find another potential buyer under the circumstances. The staunchest opponents of selling the nursing home have leveled a barrage of negativism at the offerors and dredged up some incidents that have apparently occurred at some of their nursing homes. And you may hear some of those examples yet tonight. We heard a lot of them yesterday at a press conference. The same things, though, happened at the Champaign County Nursing Home. So I want to put their examples in perspective. While I'm not here to criticize the operation of the Champaign County Nursing Home, to be fair, we need to compare its recent performance with those nursing homes operated by the offerors. You've all received the information packet. Let me just cut through here a little bit and summarize some of the information from it. Firstly, you've seen this giant spreadsheet, make your eyes bounce around. The right-hand column of that shows that only 2 of offerors' facilities had more of the total number of health deficiencies than the Champaign County nursing homes, and all the others had fewer than half the number of health deficiencies than has the Champaign County nursing home during the last 3 years. Secondly, you'll see a smaller spreadsheet, and that's embedded in the text of your information packet, that for the most serious deficiency categories, actual harm or immediate jeopardy of resident health, the offerors had 10 total deficiencies spread out over their nursing homes, while the Champaign County Nursing Home had 5 by itself. For the offeror's home, that works out to fewer than 1 home per nursing home compared to 5 for the Champaign County Nursing Home, which means that the county nursing home had 8 times the number of serious deficiencies than the average nursing home of offerors during the last 3 years. That's a big number. For the second most serious category, potential for minimum or actual harm, the Champaign County Nursing Home had almost exactly twice the number of deficiencies as did the average of offerors' homes. Thirdly, you recently received references indicating that there are 3 lawsuits against offerors' nursing homes. That sounds pretty bad until you realize that there are 6 pending wrongful death lawsuits right now against the Champaign County Nursing Home. There were 2 deaths in the Champaign County Nursing Home last year alone that resulted in a $50,000 and a $25,000 fine. In fact, it was only our nursing home was only one of 6 nursing homes in Illinois to receive a $50,000 fine in 2017, and none of the others were the offerors' nursing homes. You've seen the headlines. County nursing home fined $75,000 over 2 resident deaths. County nursing home sued over death of woman found in hot courtyard. You've seen those. The story that the opponents are telling you about the offerors' nursing homes simply does not portray a fair or accurate picture. Among other things, as proud as the opponents are of the nursing home's staffing levels, these statistics are proof enough to me that high ratings of staffing levels don't tell the whole story. The bottom line is this: if you were debating whether to sell to a buyer that had the deficiency record that the Champaign County Nursing Home has, the opponents would reject it in a New York second. I can't always foresee the future, nor can you, but I think that the offerors have the better chance of lifting the nursing home out of this toxic environment and to allow it to achieve its full potential. Thank you.
Stuart Levy. Next up is Diane OClock.
Stuart Levy from Champaign. I'll be brief. 2 things. One is that I did not expect to be on the same side of an argument as Mr. Gleicher, but I am. I hope that even if you are convinced that the nursing home needs to be sold, that you don't go with the current offerer. The second is on the question of taxes. I've talked privately, I think, with some of you in the past. So what would happen if indeed the nursing home is sold with the tax that's currently allotted for it, and property tax? And what I'd heard at the time is, well, it sounded as though any remaining debts would be paid down and then the tax would disappear. But now I hear that's not clear at all, and the tax might very well continue to be collected. So Mr. Tapley talked about taking care of the taxpayers of Champaign County. I hope it will be worse than an embarrassment for any of you who vote for a sale if there is indeed no protection that the tax will go away once the county nursing home related debts are gone. That would be a shame, a bipartisan shame. Anyway, I support the nursing home. I hope it is never sold. I certainly hope, but above all, right now, I hope it is not sold to the current offeror. Thank you.
Diane OClock, and next is Steve Moser. Steve, you're on deck. Steve, you're on deck.
I'm first.
Sorry.
Hello, my name is Diane OClock, and I've been volunteering at the nursing home for 4 or 5 years, and try and get out there once or twice a week. And I really do feel like under the current management, the care there has really improved, and I'm very concerned about the proposed sale. I just want, it's very important to me that the people I visit and have come to really care about get good care, and I don't feel very confident with the current proposal. And I just ask you to consider that very seriously and, consider whether there might be other options. And thank you for your time.
Okay, next is Steve Moser, and on deck is Belden Fields.
I got on this board in 1992, and I can tell you the fund balance of the nursing home was a positive $100,000. And when we started on this new project of this building, the referendum was passed. The building was a disaster when we started out because everything we did was wrong. But I don't enjoy hearing the county board being totally responsible for the condition the thing's in right now, because this room is full of people that were dedicated from the time it was built till the time I went off this board in 2012, and I see Brendan McGinty and Al Nudo and Steve Beckett, and I haven't seen them all, but there's a lot of people here tonight that care about that home and did everything they could to try to make it go. But in 1998, we got in the same mess financially that you're in right now. And we had to cut the budget. And Deb Busey sat there with me, and we did it with a lot of other people, but we laid some people off. And there was anarchy with the help in this whole operation here because somebody lost their job. And after we got started with this nursing home in 2002, the first thing we had to do was deal with the union. And to me, the biggest fallacy of this whole thing is the state of Illinois is broke. You've got Medicaid people in there that can't pay, and you're not getting enough money to keep the thing going the way the income stream has been disrupted with them not meeting their payments on time. And the other thing is how many public or private pay people are in there, and it's not very many. I haven't seen the numbers lately, but it's just a downhill slide when you got good people in there that try their best to make the thing go. We hired people, and we heard reports about how you had to have a census of close to 200 in there as patients, and what the breakdown was between private pay and Medicaid and Medicare. And we worked with the hospitals in this town trying to get some more Medicaid people or Medicare people in there and more private people in there, and it never got off the ground the way it should have. And it's just the taxes in this county are getting outrageous. I own some farmland where we're paying $50 an acre in real estate taxes, and Champaign passed this big referendum a year ago, and all I've heard is, I'm surprised when my tax bill came and it was $500 or $600 higher this year than it was last year. And a lot of these little school districts in this county are hanging by their fingernails because all they've got is property tax because the state has put them in the same position the nursing home's in. And I'd like to see this thing succeed, but Lord knows this board has tried everything under the sun that I can think of with trying to get better management, but you cannot compete when you're paying benefits to your help like we are, and the privates in this town are not doing that. And I just don't see how you can keep driving this corporate fund down to keep any operation in this building that can't pay its own way. Eventually, it's got to be dealt with, and I think you're to the point now that you can't wait. Tonight's the night, because if you got a buyer and you've only got one, and maybe he's not the greatest in the world, but it's a buyer, but you're still sitting there with almost $8 million worth of bonds out on that building and a tax levy that's going to have to go into perpetuity to pay it off. And I see no way this home can continue with 130 people in it. With a Medicaid population you've got, and the private pay being where it is. I got a letter from my insurance company with nursing home insurance, and the rates on us are going up 40% again this year because they say it's going to take $200 a day to keep somebody in a nursing home.
Got to wrap it up, Steve.
That's my.
All right, thank you. Next up is Belden Fields, and on deck is Evelyn Thomas.
I think, I'm Belden Fields. I think that some of the remarks made by people who come to a different conclusion than I do are correct. The nursing home has not been operating at its full potential. And I think there are two major reasons for that. One has been there was a spate of very poor administration in the nursing home. That was why the Oversight Board of Directors was created, to try to do something about that, but that obviously was not sufficient. And that's why you brought in another management firm to try to work with it. The other thing that was very damaging to the nursing home was, of course, the lag in the processing of the Medicaid applications. That was just devastating. So yeah, there have been problems in the nursing home. It's difficult to get people to come into it, particularly after, if we go back a year and a half, we talk about selling it. If I were a physician, I don't know that I would recommend a person who needed post-procedural nursing home. I don't know that I would recommend them to come to that at this point. And it's very difficult also to get people to come to work, because why would you go to work if you're not sure that it's going to be sustained? You know what's going to happen to it. But I think it did have a potential. My mother was in it when it was a grand place. One of the really great things about it were the RNs that Diane and Liz that I dealt with, who had a level of competency that was very important. And I don't see that turning this nursing home over now to a company which wants to reduce the staffing and reduce the qualifications, get rid of those RNs, who I can tell you were really important in that nursing home, and putting people who are less qualified in the nursing hierarchy. We've been criticized for using old data. Yes, there was some old data in there, the 4 times citation for the worst nursing homes in the Chicago area. That was back in 2009. But there were also more recent things. such as Medicare and Medicaid saying we don't want to deal with these places anymore, the closings of the nursing home. The mode of operation, the form of organization of this firm, I assume still remain consistent, which is the worst kind of organization you can have, according to some of the writers for Kaiser Foundation. So I think I really would hope that if you do sell it to these people, that they do a good job. But I don't think, in my own mind, the indicators are there that they're going to do it. So I hope you won't. The other thing I want to say is I want to take my hat off to two people in this room, Cathy Manuel and Claudia Lenhoff. I've worked a lot in this community with different organizations, but I think these two people and their dedication, their willingness to dig down and really do some research has just been amazing. And I don't think that their public condemnation, such as was heard tonight, is a very worthy thing to have done. They are people we ought to thank because they're exemplary citizens, and we don't have enough citizenship in this country right now. So thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Cathy.
Evelyn Thomas and Brendan McGinty's on deck.
Good evening. I'm Evelyn Thomas, and I have had the privilege to work at the Champaign County Nursing Home for 12 years. I have heard a number of comments, but I'm here on behalf of the 140-plus residents that's unable to speak for themselves, as well as my coworkers. The residents that are at the nursing home, their families have had an opportunity to choose any nursing home in Champaign County. But they seen something in the Champaign County nursing home that they felt comfortable with enough to have their loved ones entrusted with us giving them care. We do the best that we can. Champaign County Nursing Home has everything that the residents need, from a beauty shop to the dentist, good housekeeping, dietary, laundry, and also some compassionate workers. We do the best we can with what we have to meet the needs of the residents. We also have social service who takes out time to comfort our residents when they need comforting and encouraging them that they are in a good place. So I don't see any reason for the nursing home to be sold. I think that we all need to come to the table and find another way to make sure that the nursing home can be the best nursing home that it can be. Champaign County is a good nursing home. Yes, we make mistakes, but we learn from them. If you think that we don't feel pain when one of our residents leave, we do. I encourage you to come to the table. Let us stop bickering about the finances and find a way to solve the problem. We have some staff that has been at the nursing home for 25, 30 years. They could have went anywhere else, but they have chose to stay at the nursing home because there is something there. We work together, we cry together, we feel together, and we love our residents. It's a lot of negativity in the news today about the nursing home. Do you all think about how it affects the residents as well as the livelihood of the staff? I don't know, but I don't think so. I think you need to think about how the residents feel when they look on the TV and see that their home is being bashed. They have worked all their lives to reach this destination in their life to where they need somebody to love them and take care of them. But if I was to see my home on the TV every day negatively, that would put me in a bad state of mind. The staff that has been there all these years, where would they go? They love the Champaign County Nursing Home, and so do I. I wouldn't choose nowhere else to work because Champaign County Nursing Home is a good nursing home. So I encourage you not to sell the nursing home. Thank you.
Brendan McGinty is next. Esther Pat, you're on deck.
Mr. Chairman, when we first sat down, did you say 3 minutes? Because everybody's taking 5 minutes.
Well, it would be nice. Okay, you can have 2. Okay, Brendan.
All right, perfect. I like it. Thank you. And good evening. My name is Brendan McGinty. I live in Philo. It's great to see so many old friends and enemies in one place. I'm kidding. I served here on the county board from '04 to 2012. All 8 years I served as finance chair. I don't think we need to talk about the finances. It's time for the county to no longer operate. I think the majority feel that way. For those that don't, I certainly respect their opinion. It's been this way for a long time, and I don't like it. I was there a lot early on in my term with my mother there in a Medicaid bed, but we have to do this to save the beds. I think it's so important to save the beds. The other thing that I'll mention briefly is that one of the things that happened while I was on the board was the development of a county strategic plan. And I think what's important about the strategic plan is that it addressed the county as a whole, all the operations. At the time, it was about a $120 million budget. And what happens when there are financial challenges within one operation is the movement of money, and if it gets bad, it can affect the operations of other county services. And I think that that's an important thing to note when considering this as a whole. So what I would encourage, but this is, I so respect the fact that you all serve. This is a tough position to be in. You hear so much on both sides, and it becomes foggy. So keep it simple. You're public servants, right? We all did it for public service and to be that. So remember who we're serving, the citizens as a whole. That's all. So thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Okay, Esther, I just realized you don't really want to come and speak. Is that correct? Right. Okay. Next up is Eric Jacobson, and Barbara Wysocki is on deck.
So I'm truly not happy to be here because every once in a while I have this habit of looking at data, which I acquired professionally. And every once in a while I find that leads me into disagreement with people who are otherwise my friends. Who are my friends, I hope still are. But I supported raising our taxes to support the nursing home. I did that because philosophically, I do believe that this type of care should be a total community obligation. But that didn't pass. That money stream is off. So sometimes when you get into a hard place where your political philosophy, your philosophy about policy runs into some really hard realities. And I think that's where we are. I tried to do some homework, which I shared with you in emails. One of the previous speakers said, compare our nursing home to the nursing homes that are operated by the prospective purchasers, and I did that to best of my ability. I used the U.S. News rankings, which are pretty reliable for healthcare providers. And essentially, the ones that I looked at that are operated by Extended Healthcare Clinical, on average, are more highly rated than Champaign County Nursing Home. I don't know why. But some of them are not. Some of them are not. But they are for profit. Typically, the other thing my research found is that around the nation, not-for-profit nursing homes do rank higher than for-profits. And, that sort of reinforced my general philosophy. Unfortunately, our nursing home doesn't. And despite the very best efforts of you all and Champaign County staff, dedicated staff, that hasn't been, capable of happening. So I'm very reluctantly saying that if I were in your shoes, I would vote for this sale. I'll say one other thing. I serve on the Urbana City Council. I don't come here representing the city of Urbana, but I can make an observation about Urbana. Urbana is working very hard to be friendly to business. But we also hold businesses that have a severe impact on the people they serve, we hold them accountable. One of the ways we hold businesses, we hold landlords, for example, accountable for how they treat tenants and what kind of residences they provide. And again, I'm not speaking for Urbana, but I would be really surprised if things went south with a private nursing home, that Urbana wouldn't do everything possible within our power, within our legal power, to hold them accountable. Because that's the experience that I have seen on, on Urbana City Council. So, again, with some, feeling some sadness that we've come to this point, if I were you, I would recommend the sale.
Barb Wysocki and Michael Wilmore is on deck.
My name is Barbara Wysocki, living at 108 West Holmes in Urbana. I served on the county board for 12 years, beginning in 1998. My entire tenure on the board was absorbed with the issues of the nursing home, which at that time were still housed in the old facility, offering excellent care and services to local residents. Even with its outstanding reputation, a great staff, and great management, the economic stability of the nursing home was always at risk. Over time, those risks have only mounted, despite the new facility, which we moved into in 2008. Since then, the economic challenges have continued and deepened, as have changes in the healthcare field, and all of these trends have been well publicized and well documented. Since the nursing home moved into its new facility, the healthcare scene in Champaign County has drastically changed. Specialized facilities address the needs of the most ill and aged. Less restrictive places offer more freedom for those able to move about. Almost luxury-styled units are available for those with the financial resources. There is just no way that a public institution can compete with the availability that we have here in Champaign County. To meet the crisis that seems to have never ended, we have done a lot of things over the years. We started off by raising fees and admission increases. Lately, we seem to have gone to siphoning off allocated revenues from other county departments and mandated services to support the nursing home. We've added advisory boards, auxiliary boards, outside management firms to generate revenue and increase bed capacity to achieve a greater economic viability. And yet the nursing home is not able to sustain itself. The last effort was the county board's advisory ballot question about its continued retention of the nursing home, done without sufficient public discussion or information regarding its current conditions or its consequences. The outcome was predictable. I truly don't get the sense that there is the support out in the public for the nursing home that there was when we passed the referendum to build the new facility. So now we find ourselves at a crossroad: to keep the nursing home public or to accept an offer from a sole bidder. In either case, there are no guarantees that the 243 Medicare beds, 33% of the county's total, will be available by choice A or choice B. There is a chance that to sell the nursing home for the $11 million that is on the table will allow the county to avoid bankruptcy. And I think you need to weigh that option. Bankruptcy is not just a legal process. It has severe implications for what the county financially can and cannot do. Continued county ownership will only extend the uncertainty of survival and deepen the financial hole. In all the hand-wringing and passion that I've heard in these last couple of months, I have yet to have anybody say to me, please raise my taxes so we can continue the nursing home. And I don't know if there is a will or the courage to even consider that option. But unless the action is something that drastic, I would really suggest that this county board consider selling it. Thank you.
Michael Wilmore and Richard Kreidner, I think is next. Did I get that right? Okay, thank you.
Michael Wilmore, Champaign County Citizens Staff Representative for AFSCME. In 2010, the Northwest Times reported that Mr. Rothner's North Lake Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, after repeated citations and 3 consecutive periods of probation, after they were given many months to correct substandard care that put its residents in immediate jeopardy, was ordered closed after federal authorities called it one of the worst nursing homes in the country. In 2016, 5 years after Avi Rothner bought the Pima County Nursing Home, privatizing a public good, the home Posada del Sol was denied Medicare and Medicaid payments after repeated serious deficiencies in care. It is worth noting that Amy Fish, who came to speak to you all a few weeks ago with Mr. Rothner, touting the virtues of a Nebraska home, worked for Pima County in Arizona at the time of the sale of the Pima County home, facilitating that sale, then shortly thereafter accepting a position in Mr. Rothner's company, leaving public service and the consequences of that sale behind. In 2010, the Chicago Tribune reported that after repeated inspections found violence, abuse, and mistreatment of residents at Somerset Place, the Rothner family's largest facility, and after a female resident was murdered, the state of Illinois closed the home. In the year prior to Somerset's closure, the facility received $15 million in Illinois taxpayer money. The Chicago Tribune in 2010 reported that there had been 86 cases of sexual violence at the Rothner-owned Rainbow Beach Care Center in Chicago, which were discovered during the state's inspection of sexual assaults at another Rothner facility on the north side of Chicago, Sheridan Shores Care and Rehabilitation Center. As a follow-up in 2012, the Chicago Tribune reported that while sexual assaults continued after female patients were held down and raped by male patients, a horror that had gone on at that point for years, rather than solving the problem, the Rothners instead shuffled control of Rainbow Beach amongst family and hired an attorney who worked to successfully expel state-assigned compliance monitors from the home. The Tribune also reported that during that same period of time, the Rothners paid themselves and others in ownership $3.8 million in dividends and distributions from proceeds to that home. It seems they are very experienced at extracting profit, but at a terrible, terrible cost to the residents in their facilities. The list of failure to provide care while still making a profit goes on far longer than I have time to convey tonight. Some of you may portray all that I said as anecdotal, but I know that you have been provided with extensive research and that there are literally thousands of violations by Rothner-owned or controlled nursing homes over the past few years. Some of you may point to difficulties in care here. Those are real difficulties. But as a public nursing home, the employees present know very well that those responsible for any failures in care are held accountable. They wear that as a badge of pride. If you turn this nursing home into a privately owned mechanism for profit, you will lose that accountability. To try to bend statistics to say that somehow the repeated terrible patterns and failure of care at so many Rothner facilities is equivalent to the precious, transparent, and accountable community resource that is Champaign County Nursing Home is misleading at best and incredibly dangerous at worst. Despite the chaos that has been created by a year and a half of public discussion that this nursing home is destined to be sold, despite repeated turnover of supervisors, despite the high turnover of employees and a slight downturn in the census, all of which I believe are directly related to the constant talk of sale, despite all that chaos, employees continue to come to work every day and strive for quality care. With the cooperation of the new administrator, employees established a quality service committee in order to maintain the focus of the nursing home on their true mission in these difficult times, which is to care for the people who call Champaign County Nursing Home their home. Some of you here tonight may threaten to obstruct the financial operations of the nursing home if the vote does not go your way. Some of you here tonight have told employees it is either sell the home or lose their jobs and pitted one group of county employees against the other. Some of you also did everything you could last year to defeat a ballot referendum that could have solved the financial problems of the county. To you and to others who may be afraid of what happens after this vote, I say it is not too late. Look into your hearts before you vote tonight. A county government can choose to provide needed services to its citizens. Elected officials can lead and can decide to work hard to find solutions to problems and find ways to fund all critical services, including care of its elderly and most vulnerable citizens. Elected officials in Knox County and Rock Island County and Will County and McLean County and others have made that very choice. You have the power tonight to choose to do those things. You have the power to choose the path that is harder, but which leads to a better place. Thank you.
Richard K. Steve Beckett, you're on deck. Could somebody hold a microphone for him? Jim, could you do that?
Yes, my name's Richard Crideneer, and I live in the nursing home. I'm a resident there. I've been there for 7 years, and I've been fairly active in its meetings and trying to stay abreast of what's happening, but it's difficult sometimes. It gets a little depressing, especially these days, but still I'm trying to stay with it. I was at the meeting where this company made its presentation, and somebody asked me what I thought. And the first thing I said was, they seem kind of slick. And when I watched a clip on, it was actually on YouTube, about a New York county that was debating whether to sell to them, and they used the same word, slick. And I was impressed that, hey, I'm not alone. So anyway, and so I listened to the meeting. A friend was with me, and she recorded the whole portion where they were taking questions, and I listened over and over and over again, probably 5 times, so I could try to get comfortable with them. And I thought I had, but then I started looking into some of the other websites that I had been able to acquire, and it just, I couldn't find anything really good to say. There was no website saying, hey, these guys are really great. Look what all the good things they've done for us. One thing that I'm really nervous about, I used to get down on the Gazette because they didn't ever say anything good about us. Well, they aren't going to be coming to all the meetings. anymore. There aren't going to be meetings anymore. This is going to be a private nursing home. The doors are going to be closed when the meetings happen. I'm not going to be able to go to the meetings. When they sit around the table and decide what's going to happen there, there are not going to be any outside forces trying to help make the decisions. That scares the H-E-double-L out of me. And I tell you what, I hadn't started looking for places to live. I said, well, I'm just going to give these guys a chance, see what it feels like. But they've got to abide by county stipulations for this and this. But when those are gone, all hell's going to break loose. I know it because these guys are slick. And once they have a free hand is what they're going to have. So for me, it's bad because you have a sole bidder from a company that is hand in hand with them, and that bothers me. And it was really, really strange that I found this New York County feeling the very same that I did, slick. They're slick. And I believe that's what we're going to have, a slick company running a nursing home according to what you laid down in the proposal, but once that's gone, bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thanks for your hard work, and I do really appreciate the County Supervisory Board. They do an awful lot of hard work for no thanks. So, thanks again. That's it.
Steve Beckett.
Thanks to all the county workers, too.
Steve Beckett, Champaign County citizen. I used to sit where you're sitting, slightly different configuration, and would listen to public participation, various approaches. The most recent approaches from the last two speakers are sort of the Wild West. We would be returning to the Wild West if somebody else operated the nursing home, or this particular buyer would operate the nursing home other than Champaign County. And I think that's unfortunate. I think that you have common sense, and your common sense should tell you that this nursing home is not going to be operated like the Wild West. There are regulators, there are laws. I appreciated what Eric Jacobson had to say about the city of Urbana. But you know where I stand because you read the paper too, so I don't want to repeat everything anybody else said. I guess I reflect on when I was on the county board and how I ultimately felt, not how I felt going in, but how I ultimately arrived at my decision-making process. Two things come to mind. I visited the Democratic caucus tonight, and it seemed to me that the dynamic that was very much at work when I was on the county board is still at work with this county board. And that is the Democrats think the Republicans are the enemy. The Republicans think the Democrats are the enemy. The Democrats think, well, we'll do this if the Republicans do that. And the Republicans think, well, we'll do this if the Democrats do that. And I ultimately rejected that, completely rejected it as not the approach. That's not why I took the oath. I didn't take the oath to the Democratic Party, and if I was a Republican, I didn't take the oath to the Republican Party. I took the oath to the citizens of Champaign County, and I mean all of them, not just District 9, which was my old district. And so when I had to make a decision, the decision was my decision alone. I wasn't thinking party loyalty. I was thinking about what was the right thing to do under those circumstances. And for whatever it's worth, and I realize it's probably not worth anything, that's what I want each of you to do, because I respect you. I appreciate the job that you do. I've been there. I know how frustrating it can be. For the citizens of Champaign County, we just want you to do the right thing. And we want you to do the right thing for the right reasons, not for some parade of horribles, but based on civility amongst yourselves and the facts, and the real facts, not some made-up facts. Thank you.
Our hour is up. Is there a motion to extend the period of, okay, the motion is to move to extend the period for public participation. Second, Mr. Rosales. Discussion, see none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next up is Garth. Sorry?
I didn't hear any chance to say nay.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Thank you for correcting me, Mr. Ezra. I do appreciate it. Garth Seipel, Garth Seipel is up, and then Ellen Noodle, you're on deck.
My name is Garth Seipel, and I've visited the nursing home on a number of occasions. While visiting, I had the chance to meet Richard, who has a degenerative neurological disease. What you're telling him is the care he's going to receive for his degenerative disease will be much below average care. And I guess my thought in that regard is, would anyone here walk into a healthcare facility and say, please be sure and provide me with below average care? Now, this isn't intended to be I'm not trying to use Richard here to make a simple craven appeal to emotion. It's what I can look at is to say that part of a duty of government is its parents' patriae duty to provide for the general welfare and well-being of its citizenry, and that includes Richard. So, there seems to be a legitimate basis for questioning the quality of care that would be provided to Richard and all of the residents like him. And although I must say, like Richard, the amount of time and effort that's been put into balance the interest, and maybe more particularly the values are at work here, has been most impressive, and clearly people have taken this very serious for a long period of time. I would just say, with regard to a taxpayer, I'm someone who's willing to pay higher taxes to take care of those who can't take care of myself. And with regard to the decision to vote on this tonight, my thought would be whether it's still possible to come up with a provider who can provide something more than much below average care. I have listened to everyone here tonight talk about what boils down to, I think, is trying to provide services for many different and competing interests when there are scarce tax dollars and resources. So I guess that's what I bring to it, is that if the battle is over resources, then I hope, I know that I would be willing to pay higher taxes, and I would hope others would as well. But I guess I want to close with a thought that it's clear to me how much time and effort has gone into this, and that since Richard has taken the time to thank the board for its efforts, I would like to do the same. Thank you very much.
Next is Ellen Nudo. Claudia Lenoff, you're on deck.
Good evening. My name's Alan Nudo. I'm a former county board member. I recognize many of you, Lorraine and Geraldo and Pius, Patsy, several others, Aaron. And like Steve, Max, you were on the board when I was there? Yeah, okay. Now I've lost my whole train of thought. When I first got on the board, that was all we discussed. It took an hour of our proceedings almost every meeting about what was going on at the nursing home. Very quickly I learned as a businessman, we had an employee that we hired to run the nursing home. If that person left, we had to hire another person, and we had a 6-month learning curve for that person. So a one-unit operation is not efficient at all in terms of how this industry has changed and grown. Even then, it was the same way. So I introduced 2 resolutions, one to hire a management firm and the second to hire, or to start an advisory board made up of experts in the health field. We had social workers, we had bankers, we had people in personnel, doctors. Dr. Lansford was our first president. I served on that board for 3 years, and I have a very strong feeling about preserving these beds, as all of you do. I also helped vet SAK. I was part of the committee to vet SAK. I also was on the recent review committee to vet the current buyer. So what's at risk right now are 220 Medicare approved and licensed beds. And with the thought of it going on without the buyer, the risk of severe cutbacks in other county department services and personnel, and worse yet, if we do not sell the nursing home, millions more in future losses. Subsidies to the nursing home, which will crater out our bond ratings and our future budgets here, including mandated services. So how do we go about this decision? How do you go about this decision reasonably, logically? And what I like to propose in a compromise fashion is let's look at what is in front of us right now and what we need to do. First of all, I want to talk about the buyer. Contrary to some of the other comments made, I was in 3 of those as part of the vetting committee. They're all on the south side of Chicago, which is my home area, born and raised in Harvey, Illinois. One of them very close to Harvey. And I did not see what people are talking about. I saw clean operations. I saw amenities that we don't have. I was in the nursing home for 3 years, every month walking through. I saw, a caring staff. I saw a trained staff. I saw lots of amenities and lots of activities with the people outside of the room, outside of their rooms in activities. I did not see what people are talking about. Secondly, financially, I mean, it's a given that banks don't lend money to poorly run operations. They do not. They do all kinds of vetting on their own. And some of the comments that have been made about the wherewithal or the way that they run a business, a bank would not lend, in this case, over $180 million. The letter I have in front of me from the bank is glowing. It's absolutely glowing. They will lend money, no questions asked, to this company. I also spent 2.5 months in Clark Lindsay in the last, since November, caring for a friend, a very close friend. And I put the 3 units that I saw equivalent to the level of service and the level of amenities and just the caring attitudes as what I saw up in Chicago. So the bottom line is this 1-unit operation that we have is pretty hard to run when you have the backup of talent and systems that we'll never have. And so I think they have the advantages. You know, when you're born, you come into life with one thing, and you leave life with one thing. That's your name. And so how you live your life and the things that you make statements on and the decisions you make in life, and this particular one is going to affect all of the Champaign County residents, all of them, not just your district. And what's really important to realize is there was a 54-46 margin. The county overwhelmingly rejected a tax referendum. I am only suggesting that Stephanie Furtado's amendment to the Type A, the Group A budget is the way to go. We put $50,000 into social justice. When we free up these dollars from the burdens of the nursing home, there's other things that we can do in social programs. And this is compromise. Honestly, if you don't sell the nursing home, it will close under its own weight of debt and the stigma that surrounds it right now. It's your choice. Thank you.
Claudia Linhoff. Barbara Pritchard, you're on deck.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Lenhoff, and I'm the director of the Champaign County Healthcare Consumers. I have shared a lot of information with the county board and with the public. I want to get one thing straight. James Unland, who is a healthcare valuation expert with a national reputation for excellence, does not want y'all to hire him. That is not why he submitted that information. I also wanted to say that when you started this process of hiring a brokerage firm, which many of us asked you to hold off on doing that until SAK had some time to get their feet under them and get some work done in the nursing home, you all said hiring a brokerage firm didn't bind you to selling the nursing home. And if they found a buyer, it didn't bind you to that buyer. It just would let you explore your options. Tonight, everything sounds like you only have the one option, and that's to sell to this buyer. Unlike Mr. Nudo, I did not get to go on the visits to the prearranged visits to the nursing homes owned by Mr. Rothner. I did go, however, a couple weeks later, and my experience was completely different than Mr. Nudo's, and I would not feel comfortable leaving my mother in the nursing homes that I saw. Now, I want to talk about the data with regard to quality of care. You've heard a lot about the data and people who have looked at the data, and you've heard numbers and comparisons and things like that. Not all data are the same. And you can't just look at aggregate data and count number of deficiencies. You have to dig deep, and you have to look at those IDPH violation reports. And I challenge you to do that, because those reports tell a story. And the story that they tell is about the violation that occurred, why it occurred, and also what the corrective measures should be. And one of the things that you see when you read those violation reports, unlike the violation reports for the Champaign County nursing home, you see that staff failed to send a patient to the hospital or call a doctor when they got injured in the Rothner homes. That doesn't happen here. Here, staff call as soon as it's needed. You also see that staff in the Rothner homes in the violations frequently explain that what happened basically happened because they were understaffed. I'm not going to go through the stories. You have them and you can read them. In terms of a track record and history of quality of care, Rothner has had nursing homes shut down. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen because of one incident. It doesn't happen because of one death. It doesn't happen because of an accumulation of deficiencies. It happens because there's violations that are profoundly serious, and then the nursing home does not do its job in putting in place the corrective measures in order to prevent future violations. And when we're talking about violations, we're talking about deaths. We're talking about injuries, dismemberment, people becoming disabled because of the quality of care issues. Lastly, I wanted to clarify a couple things. The RFP committee that I served on, I've heard a couple of you county board members say that the RFP committee recommends that you sell to this buyer. That is incorrect. That was not our job on the RFP committee. Our job, excuse me, I've got the floor. Our job on the RFP committee, and we asked questions to clarify this, our job was to determine whether the bid in front of us met your most minimum criteria. And if it met that criteria, should the county board then consider it? And that was the vote that occurred that forwarded this bid for your consideration. It was not a recommendation. It was not an endorsement. It was just letting you know the criteria you put out, this bid met that. And I'm telling you, that bid met the least that it could possibly meet. And now this deeper dive into quality of care is really important. And you have a singular question in front of you tonight regarding the nursing home. And it is not about have you had a proper evaluation done and all the other things that I have helped to raise. The question is, do you sell to this buyer? You know, and some of you say that we have to sell it to save it. Well, this buyer has had nursing homes shut down by the Illinois Department of Public Health and the Indiana Department of Public Health over there. The last thing for people who are concerned about your property taxes and you think that they're going to go down if this nursing home is sold, think again and check the memo from the state's attorney's office. Thank you.
Barbara Pritchard is next. Praja Vashapati is on deck.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Barbara Pritchard, and I wrote a letter to members Storr and King, who are my representatives on the board, and I'd like to read that for time's sake. I don't usually get involved in county politics, but for many years I visited a friend who resided at Champaign County Nursing Home for over 5 years. I saw him weekly, if not more, and was pleased with the care he received. I've been concerned about the decision to sell the Champaign County Nursing Home. I've read a great deal of the research provided by Champaign County healthcare consumers on the proposed buyer, William Avi Rothner. I'm appalled at the number of violations that nursing home under this individual's ownership. I'm really appalled and angered. I am a disability advocate, and I've been so for a number of years, and have visited countless number of people in nursing homes. I hate nursing homes, and I don't want to die in one. I've seen friends be in nursing homes, both good and bad, and I was truly angered. I would be truly angered if the sale of our local resource went to an individual who obviously doesn't care about the residents in the nursing homes he owns. I was always comfortable visiting my friend at the nursing home, and I felt that he was in a safe place. I respectfully ask you to slow down the sale and do careful research on possible other buyers. I think we should do more to protect the health of residents living at the nursing home and their families. I think it's incumbent upon you to consider that and to realize that the financial pressures you're under, or the financial pressures that the nursing home is causing, are a great deal. But I think that the residents in Champaign County, particularly the residents in the nursing home and their family members, deserve a consideration of a buyer that has a better track record than the one that I've seen presented. Thank you for your time. And I have copies of my statement, if I can leave them with someone. Okay, just a second.
Okay, Kyle, why don't you announce the next person, all right?
Yes.
Pranjal Vachaspati.
I have a bundle.
And Jennifer Putman, you're on deck.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Pranjal Vajraspati. I'm a resident of Urbana. I'm a candidate for county board. You know, I have been thinking a lot about the Champaign County nursing home, you know, over the last couple of years, and especially in the last months. And, you know, what strikes me as the most unique feature of the county nursing home is that the buck stops here. You know, you know, in terms of accountability and transparency, you know, you all, the 21 of you are responsible for what goes on there. And, you know, when we have a privately funded nursing home like the Rothner Group, we don't know where the buck stops. You know, if we look at their miasma of holding groups, you know, does the buck stop with Altitude Healthcare? Does the buck stop with Extended Care Clinical? Does it stop with Hunter Management LLC? Does it stop with Rothner Health Ventures LLC? Does it stop with Foothills Real Estate? Does it stop with SIR Management Incorporated? You know, I could go on. And you know, when it comes down to it, the buck stops in none of those places. You know, in 2009, a 21-year-old felon allegedly raped a 69-year-old woman. You know, one of Mr. Rothner's business partners said, you know, I have nothing to do with day-to-day operations at Maplewood Care, and neither do my associates. And the Chicago Tribune says they're the owners who aren't in charge. And so, you know, if the buck isn't going to stop anywhere, if there's no accountability in this company, then, you know, the moral weight of the problems that happen at the nursing home still rests with this body. If you hand over the nursing home to a body that is totally unaccountable, is totally, you know, not transparent, you know, a body where each facility is run by a separate corporation with unknown ownership, with a secret board of directors, then, you know, you all are still responsible if the nursing home shuts down in 6 months, like the one in Pima County does, because, you know, Medicare and Medicaid payments were shut off. You know, y'all are still responsible if we have an epidemic of sexual assaults like we saw at some of these nursing homes up in Chicago. And, you know, I've been grappling with the moral weight of these decisions because, you know, I hope to be elected to this body, and it's a difficult. You know, there's a significant moral weight to these decisions, and simply selling to a totally unaccountable, you know, a buyer that sets up again this miasma of shell corporations, management companies, and holding companies, is you know, it doesn't absolve you of responsibility for what happens at that nursing home. And so, you know, I don't think I could, you know, if I was on the board at this time and I was asked to, you know, I voted to sell to this corporation, you know, I don't think I'd be able to sleep at night. Thank you.
Next is Jennifer Putman. Aaron Ammons, you're on deck.
It was generous of you to vote yes to allow extended public participation time. I even think it was generous of those who voted no. I appreciate that. I embrace that hearty no. We've heard enough. But what if you gave a party and no one came? And thank God people care. Thank God we care so much about what happens with our nursing home. As others, former county board members have remarked, I can't be in this room without feeling some august karma. I'm in the presence of people with whom I've laughed and I've gone, and I've cried, and we've grown old and older, and some of us have grown infirm. But I want to offer a news flash, and county board members, I hope you'll bring this up as the meeting ensues. A measure passed the Illinois State General Assembly today that would reduce the pending eligibility time for incoming residents who might be eligible for Medicaid support for their stay. and I know you'll want to say more about that. I'm going to speak in a number of voices. The first voice is the voice that I used when I was in this room in the very first meeting of the Vote Yes Twice campaign in 2002. And Steve Beckett was on that committee, and Robert Kirchner, Bob's wife, Jerry Kirchner. Deb, I think you helped bring us together in here. We just reached into our pockets and took out the money for the yard signs. We called into Penny for Your Thoughts and other shows, knocked on doors and knocked ourselves out, begged people to vote yes twice. And I have beautiful memories of the groundbreaking. I remember a woman took off her coat and put it around my shoulders because she thought I was cold, a spouse of a county board member. It was beautiful. We came in with such high hopes, and now with the 2020 vision that hindsight affords, we have to acknowledge we made some mistakes. Probably in that first meeting or those first meetings of the Vote Yes Twice campaign, we probably should have asked for 10 cents per $100, not 3 cents per $100 for the operating subsidy. When we noticed mold, Mr. Carter saw the mold. We probably should have got on that a lot faster. Maybe we should have asked, demanded, earned greater compensation when the mold remediation was complete. Maybe there should have been a project manager on site round the clock, or at least during the working hours. Maybe when the census slumped, whether it was Jeremy Maupin or Andrew Buffenbarger, we should have been on top of that. There's so many things that mistake after mistake, ill-considered decision. Wish we could take it back, but I beg you to not make another ill-considered decision. I'm very, very, very ill at ease with the potential buyer. Another voice I'll speak with now is the voice of a person who attended the Healthcare Consumers Press Conference the other day, and somebody challenged the value of the healthcare consumers research. There was a little give and take about what does, what was that word? Anecdotal. What's the meaning of anecdotal? Is this real evidence or anecdotal evidence? I don't know that definition, but I heard the voice of the buyers on a tape saying, we're going to reduce, the way we'll do it is we'll reduce the RNs and we're going to use LPNs and CNAs. That wasn't an anecdote. I heard it, and I'm very ill at ease about that. I don't want there to be another mistake, not like the mistakes that preceded those. Please pause, take more time. The other voice I want to use is of a 6-year-old girl, me. When I was waiting for my mom to come home from law school, Mommy, why are you, I don't even know what a lawyer is. And she said, well, a lawyer is a person who helps you when you're in trouble. And I want the staff of the Public Defender's Office who spoke during the Committee of the Whole to know that I respect them. The zealous defense of the indigent is something that I was brought up to respect. I don't want their positions to be sacrificed. I don't want their caseloads to grow. I don't want them to have to give up their investigators, and I love them for their concern for their clients. Thank you very much.
Aaron Adams.
Good evening, everyone. My fellow Champaign County citizens. My name is Aaron Ammons, and I am the alderman for Ward 3 in Urbana. I am also a union president of SEIU Local 73, our local chapter. And of course, I am a taxpayer here in Champaign County. Now, unlike many others who have spoken, I've never served on this body, but my wife, who is now our state representative with some of us, Carol Ammons, served on this body for nearly 6 years. And we have had many, many discussions about the nursing home and the process that Jenny Putnam outlined that led us to this decision tonight. Well, doesn't have to be a decision tonight. So I shared my position as an alderman to demonstrate that I have some understanding for the position that many of you sit in. It's not a comfortable one. I empathize with you. We are in the process of making very serious cuts at the city of Urbana. And I appreciate all of your willingness to serve in a microscope the way that you do. It's not easy. I genuinely appreciate that, even if we disagree about some things. And I note my union experience because I want to share with the members of AFSCME and the broader public that I value good union jobs because of what they mean to our society, what they mean to our economy, and in this case, what those decent paying jobs mean to the care of our seniors who reside in our county nursing home. As a candidate for county clerk and as a taxpayer, the condition of the facilities and the overall budget of the county is important to me as well. I, like many, have followed the fate of the nursing home for many years. I always have, and I want to be very clear about this, I always have, and I continue to support keeping the nursing home under the control of the county board. For those who have spoken to the referendum, this is some politics. Indeed, many in this room used all manner of tactics to undermine that referendum. And those of you who did that know exactly who you are. I don't have time to start naming you, but many of you know I don't have a problem with doing that. Things that experienced politicians are well aware of that you did. So I too watched the presentation and found the potential buyer to be defensive, dismissive, condescending, and quite slick as well. And that is not the type of attitude that makes me feel comfortable in trusting our tax-paying citizens to his care, or the ones that he claims to be responsible for. Today I spoke to my mom, who has worked in nursing homes in Chicago and in Champaign for decades, including the Champaign County Nursing Home before the new facility. She said to me that the morale and the heart of the employees is critical also to the care of the residents. So I asked her, Mama, what can our seniors and their families expect if the CNAs and the orderlies have their pay cut from $15 an hour to $11 an hour? She said many people would not apply for that work because it's too much work for so little pay. She also said the people earning $11 an hour would not stick around because they will always be searching for a better opportunity, and that will ultimately diminish the institutional and patient knowledge. And so she said the people who call the nursing home their home will suffer the most due to that decision. So as I sit as an alderman in the city of Urbana, we've had the opportunity to listen to Ms. Busey and Mr. Weibel and some others come and present to us. And during that presentation, Ms. Busey shared with me, I asked a question, and I was told that recently by Ms. Busey that MPA, who was running the nursing home since 2008, I believe it is, for about 8 years, was able to stay afloat because of the Medicaid payments. And I think it's very timely what Ms. Putnam just shared about the reduction in the time and the lag that will take place because of new legislation. And I also heard Ms. Furtado offer a few scenarios that could bring us back to a break-even point and possibly turn a small profit. It is my hope that you all will take a step back and evaluate your options, because as Ms. Linhoff has said, you are not obligated to sell to this potential buyer. So before you make a decision that cannot be reversed, please take a step back. Thank you all for your service, and I thank you for listening.
Okay, that's it for public participation. Let's move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that board members wish to pull off the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Esri, second by Mr. Mitchell. Roll call, please.
Furtado?
Yes.
Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Marsh?
Yes.
McGuire? Mitchell? Patterson? Petrie?
Yes.
Rector? Rosales?
Yes.
Storr? Summers? Tinsley?
Yes.
Anderson? Clemens? Clifford? Cowart?
Yes.
Cruz? Esri?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries. Communications, are there any communications from board members? Mr. Goss.
Just a quick one. A couple of us attended yesterday the graduation from drug court. If you've never done that before and you can find time to do it, it's really a worthy program. It's interesting to watch people that have really turned their life around, and they tell their story, and I mean, it really touches you, and it shows what good we can do in this county. So, thank you.
Ms. Petrie and Mr. Harper, you have your microphone on.
Well, Mr. Goss, Mr. Weibel, I, and Mr. Rosales were at that. And then 3 of us went over to the iHotel to listen to the data being shared about the demographics of immigrants in our community and the importance of that within the community. So again, that's information that as we move forward on some of our issues and our programs that we can fold into our conversation.
Any other communications? Okay, I seek approval of the minutes of April 19th, 2018 regular meeting and the May 9th, 2018 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Zala, second Mr. Goss. Discussion on those 2 sets of minutes? See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. You'll note I left off the minutes on the April 24th meeting because we're missing page 58. Mr.
It is online, but yes, you're right, it is.
I'm sure it
not
is,
in
but
the-
so we'll move that, those
that's-
minutes into the next meeting.
That's what that's great.
Okay, next up is under new business finance, Ms. Furtado.
I just want to make sure I know where I am. So we are on
Item
13A1?
Correct.
Okay. The adoption of resolution number 218-141, authorizing the sale of the Champaign County Nursing Home.
Second by Mr. Goss. Discussion. Okay, I'd like to have, once you get the floor, please say all you can say and try to be succinctly. Mr. Storer, do you want to start off?
Yes, thank you. I would like to move that we postpone the vote on the resolution until next month.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. King. Okay, discussion on a motion to defer to next month. Any discussion, any more discussion? Mr. Patterson.
I'd just like to ask Mr. Storer to speak to his motion.
Thank you. I'm sure other county board members have received a number of communications regarding the sale of the nursing home, including reasonable concerns about the potential buyer, about the tax implications, and also about the way in which the nursing home was valued before a RFP was sent out. And I think that there's also a rather early effort to try to find an alternative, perhaps to find a solution that would allow the retention of the nursing home as a county facility. And I'd like to see, though, that early effort come to at least some sort of a effort where we can see what what might be done, and if the committee, if the board so approves, we could consider that. I think that a number of us have had at least I've had so many communications, especially in the last day, that it's been difficult to go through all of the communications, and I'd like more time to do that.
Further discussion? Ms. Petrie.
First, question to Ms. Busey. What is the cost to the county for every month that the decision-making process is extended?
For the last 2 months at least, from the end of February through the end of April, the nursing home financial position has declined by $200,000 each month, so it's $400,000 worse off at the end of April than it was at the end of February.
Okay, thank you very much. I listened to the arguments at caucus, and I do understand why this might be brought forward, but as I recall, our colleague Max Mitchell last month put on the public record that people have come before us and said we should keep the nursing home, but nary a time has anybody come before us with an idea, a plan, or an offer to sit down and hash it out and see where we could go forward. It's a little discouraging to hear this to be the case at the 0 hour of decision-making. And as Ms. Busey just explained, that every extension of the time of decision-making costs the county quite a bit of money. The second point is in the conversations about we'll get more money or we'll get different offers or we'll do this and that. Again, I have never heard any comments as to who will step forward and what is the potential for better or maybe less offer. And I use the example of what Mr. Tapley said at our last meeting on a house sale. That first offer may be very much under what your realtor says it should be, and you don't take it, and then you go months and months and months before you get the next offer, and when you run the calculation, you've actually lost more money than if you had taken the first offer and lower. So I can work on assumptions, but these assumptions, I don't have any reference to whether this is a good calculated risk. Thank you very much.
Further discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Storr.
Thank you. To reply to the Honorable Ms. Petrie's remarks, more than 150 years ago, Champaign County residents took upon themselves, decided that there was a need to care for the elderly in their community, and they created a precursor to the county nursing home. It is actually older than the University of Illinois. And the funds for that were raised by residents with far less means than what we have here today. I don't think that there is a need for us to rush into what amounts to a historic decision to end one of a very honorable and noble tradition of our county, and 1 month is all that I'm asking.
Further discussion? Question, Mr. King?
Deb, could you speak to, or Pius, whoever, could speak to the impact on the sale, the time frame for all of that if we extend it?
We have legal counsel available. Polsonelli Law Firm lawyers are available by phone, who are probably the best to answer that. But you are in an RFP process that indicated that a decision would be made this month with regard to the sale. If you want us to get the lawyers on the phone, we can do that.
Yes, I think it would be important.
How long do you think will this take? Ms. Petrie, go ahead with your comment, question.
Yes, I do want to carry on the exchange with Mr. Storr, and that is to remind everybody in the room the origination of the poorhouse was an entirely different configuration as to where we are today due to Medicare and Medicaid going into effect by the federal government, and that no nursing home, our county nursing home included, takes anyone who does not have a means of paying for the nursing home. And the second is to remind everybody to look at our present packet, all the tax implications. There is a memo from our state's attorney's office on that.
Okay, we'll wait till the phones are ready here.
Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. The question is, what is the impact of a 1-month delay on the decision to sell the nursing home? With regard to the RFP process and what we've done up to this point.
Orrin, do you have the document in front of you?
Chuck, I don't have Warren. I lost him.
Oh, okay.
Do you
Well,
want
I'm in a vehicle at the moment, but I can tell you that the check that accompanied the response to the RFP, there was a time within that document. I think it was 90 days. So if we don't go beyond that 90-day time frame, then I think we're fine, but I fear we're right on the edge of that 90-day time frame. So without the document in front of me, I can't give you the exact answer to that question.
Okay. Do you want me to try and get Orrin back? Chuck?
Yes.
Okay. Hang on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start over, okay? So I'm going to hang up.
No problem.
Okay,
No
sorry.
problem. No problem.
Hello, you have Orrin Adams from Personelli.
Hi, Orrin. Sorry. We had a problem trying to get you and Chuck both on at the same time.
Not a problem. Did Chuck answer the question that you needed?
No, so we're calling you back to ask you. So
Oh, okay.
the question is, what is the effect of a 30-day deferral by the county board on the process with regard to the sale.
Hi, this is Orrin Adams. Sorry about if there's a couple doubling up here.
Did you hear the question?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you. With respect to a delay in the vote, there is concern with respect to, as everyone currently knows, there's deposit on hand. There is an expectation of exclusive discussions, and there's an expectation of an up or down vote. Again, we'd have to go back through and double check the document with respect to those pieces, but to the extent that we are, by extending the vote being considered to, that may be considered a rejection. It gets into some very complicated legal questions and issues, but if that is considered a rejection, there's also the possibility that the proposed buyer could walk, and if the proposed buyer walks, there's nothing that would keep them from coming back. We don't represent the proposed buyer, but it's our understanding there's an expectation that a decision will be made so that they can move forward or not move forward. And if the decision is postponed, there is a strong concern that the buyer would not stick around for another month because there's an uncertainty there. So I don't know if that helps clarify it or not, but by delaying the vote, there's a strong possibility that the buyer may decide not to move forward.
Thank you.
Mr. King, follow up on that at all?
Yes, it was just going to be about the 90-day component that was spoke of by the other gentleman. Yes.
Warren, Chuck did mention that there was a 90-day period from the point at which the proposer presented the check to the county, that the county needed to make a decision within that time frame, is I believe what he said. And we know we received that check on February 28th, so obviously 90 days would be towards the end of this month. Are you aware of that?
Well, to that point, once the 90-day period runs, it would be very difficult to maintain and keep that deposit. And the current movement forward with that buyer, the buyer, in these processes, the buyer always has a due diligence period, as you all are aware in the documents, but there would be, the buyer could get their deposit back without moving forward, and it would be a strong hurdle for them coming back to the table. So the idea that we would keep them as a buyer is not a necessity, is possible, but it may not be possible. The deposit would go back to the buyer, and you would effectively start over the transaction over from the beginning. And I don't know what the buyer's mindset is on those types of timing. It would also push the closing more than likely an additional month. So whatever costs are involved there would likely be incurred.
Okay, thank you, Mr. King. Further discussion. Remember, this is on the motion to defer. Okay, roll call.
Furtado,
Yes.
Goss,
No.
Harper,
No.
King,
Yes.
Marsh,
No.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
No.
Rector, Rosales,
No.
Storr,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Anderson, Clemens,
No.
Clifford, Coert, Cruz, Esri,
No.
Weibel.
Yes, motion fails. Yeah, for the time being, if they'd be willing to.
Orin, can we just keep you on the phone in case there are additional questions?
Absolutely. I had a slight time delay when it comes to hearing based on the video, but I will stay on the phone.
Thank you.
We're back to the main motion. Discussion of the main motion. Discussion on the main motion. Mr. Storr, your mic's already on, so.
Thank you. Motion to retain the nursing home would mean cutting so much money out of the budget that will be discussed later this evening. I've met with other county board members and department heads, and to my knowledge, no concrete plan other than a hypothetical tax referendum or vague suggestions have been proposed. We're faced with making a terrible choice of ending a truly noble tradition by selling the facility to a consortium. It includes one of the worst operators in the state, or ending 30 to 40 jobs of dedicated staff who have made Champaign County a decent place to live and raise a family. In addition, the Youth Assessment Center will be cut so severely the county will incarcerate more juveniles in the detention center and start them down the unhappy path of the criminal justice system. The prison reentry program will also be so severely cut that those who have served their sentence will not receive the help in building a life in society with their family, but be pushed back into a cycle of in and out of prison. Ironically, this will actually amount to an additional cost to the county. A few citizens and community groups have made a heroic effort to find a way to keep the nursing home as a county amenity. I commend them and their 11th hour efforts, which have revealed problems that I've discussed earlier. Constituents of District 10 have expressed legitimate concerns about these matters, which have been incompletely addressed. And now we don't have any more time to look into them further. Nevertheless, attention to the affairs of the Champaign County Nursing Home have been largely neglected in the past 15 years, left to outside managers with no vested interest in the facility, and rises to the board attention only when there's a fiscal crisis or a shortage of soap and toilet paper. Recent interest notwithstanding, there have been no concrete proposals to change the oversight or management of the nursing home and to ensure sustainable operations, fiscal stability, and genuine care for our elderly. Shame on us for letting down those pioneer families that worked so hard to establish the nursing home.
Additional discussion. Ms. Petrie.
Yes, there are a couple of things that I do want to get on the public record for this evening and this vote. First of all, several people during public participation spoke that many people worked against the property tax. And I do want to remind people that in November of 2016, there was a referendum on the ballot at that time for a 1/4 cent facility sales tax increase. And people of the group that are speaking this evening worked against that passage. And I will remind everybody today in the general fund would be $6.6 million had that passed. And of that $6.6 million, 40% would have been generated by people coming into our community. Had that passed and that had been in the general fund, we would not be in this conversation this evening. So I would like people to take note of that. Second of all, the property tax increase that then was April of 2017, to point out to people that money goes to the nursing home. The county has no control over the spending of that money. And a constituent sent me a very interesting observation, pointing out to me that the way that nursing home has been managed and the contracts of the management never has had an incentive in those contracts, so that nursing home is well run and efficiently run and financially efficiently run. The county board has enabled the running of that nursing home to not be fiduciarily responsibly run. And so giving that nursing home more property tax is no guarantee that it will pull out. Steve Moser mentioned in 1992 there was $100,000 in the account of the nursing home. I know that because I have the Excel file from Dan Welch. What I learned from Laurel Pressing, though, back in that era, the county board was paying the IMRF and the Social Security for the employees of that nursing home. So that $100,000 that shows up on Dan Welch's Excel sheet does not really convey the situation of the monies in that nursing home, because those monies for the Social Security and IMRF were coming out of the county money. And Ms. Busey provided for me how much the county has forgiven the nursing home from 2005 till present day, and that's just under $6 million. If you divide that by 14 years, that's roughly about $700,000 a year. You add that to the subsidy that's going to that nursing home of between 1.2 and 1.3 million, and that's a $2 million subsidy. And to remind you, the property tax that was just brought up, and the state's attorney has a explanatory memo, the state's attorney's office has an explanatory memo in our packet now that on the property tax that is paying off the bonds, that's another subsidy. So is not the question that should be being asked by every single person in this room, for all that money subsidy that's going to that nursing home, what have we been doing that is not productive for all of these years? And actually, going back to 1992, again, Mr. Moser, if you start watching the decline, by 1998, there was no money left in the depreciation fund and the major maintenance fund. And every time I hear people talking about how good things are, I want to remind you that the depreciation fund and the major maintenance fund to this day have not been rebuilt. So you have to look at the gestalt of the finances of that home when you are talking about, should we sell it? Can we keep it going? What are the other things that are happening? And I, like Mr. Mitchell, have said many times, I will sit down with anybody who can come and talk about how can we survive and pull out of this rabbit hole that has been going on for, I'll go back to 1992, but I'll give you till 1998. So I hope everybody is thinking about that, and I hope that's a bit of information for everybody sitting in this audience that you may or may not have known about the history of our nursing home.
Other comments? Mr. Mitchell.
Just a few. I appreciate everybody's presentations here this evening, and you know, it's good to have good public debate. If I can address a few questions to staff. If there is a no sale on the nursing home, tell us about dental services.
Some dental services are provided in the nursing home and are reimbursed by the state when a dentist brings a hygienist to the home periodically, but the home has historically hired and provided an employee who is a dental hygienist. That is a non-mandated service. And in the budget process resolution that the board has to consider later in this agenda, the recommendation from administration is that non-mandated services will need to be cut. So that is an example of something that would potentially be cut based on the board's direction.
And therapy and beauty and barber services fall in those same categories?
Therapy is mandated, so it would continue to be provided. A beauty shop is not a mandated service.
A line item for the purchase of fixtures such as beds, mattresses, televisions.
I'm not sure what the state regulations are with regard to all of those items. I'm not prepared to answer that. I'm sure some of them are mandated and have to be provided.
Okay. And the other thing that puts us in a tough position is building maintenance. Our facilities have fallen behind because we're not able to, we're more reactionary than proaction. So we do have to look at that. And the other thing too is questions about marketing and advertising, doing the proper job, because the nursing home needs to have some competitive advantage to be viable in our market, in a highly competitive market. And I just don't see that we have a singularly owned nursing home have the ability to make it unique to the market. And so that's an impediment that as a singularly owned nursing home that we cannot provide. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Furtado.
First, I want to thank all the public who talked, who have invested an incredible amount of time in various ways, in some ways that I really disagree with, into this issue, who have sent me every kind of spreadsheet known to man with figures in them. A while ago, Tom Kasich asked me, there was a meeting, and he said, you didn't comment. I don't have anything to put in my story from your opinion. And I said, I've said what I believe several times. But I want to make sure that I comment before this vote. I think there's this idea, I've heard this floated, that there's a lack of awareness of the fiscal reality for the people that want to keep the home. And I was talking about this the other night with my husband, and I was talking to him about it, and I said, I'm the finance chair. At the end of the day, if I vote to keep the home, everything that happens after that, the financial implications of that, are on me. When Robert and I talked about the $1.4 million, and we went to Rick Snyder's house for 3 hours and talked line by line about that item, when I went home, I committed to myself that if there was a staff member that had to be let go because of the decision to keep the home, that I would be in the room when they were told that. I understand the financial difficulties that we're under. But the deal is, there's one buyer that we have the choice to sell to right now. I don't understand how there could be a buyer and you ask, how many nursing homes do you own? And he cannot answer that question clearly. To me, that's disqualifying, just that answer. If you don't take responsibility for the things that you own, for the things that you're gaining profit from, I do not comprehend how we could sell a public asset to that person. I've also been asked over and over, what is the financial solution? And I am going to be blunt with you. There is no silver bullet. There's a lot of things that we would have to consider. There's still construction bonds that are out there. That's one thing. There is debt debt from mismanagement and debt because of the current fiscal condition of the state. There is hope on the horizon around the management of the state, both from a lawsuit and from legislation that is very close to passing, and already there has been indications that the cash flow issue is going to get better in terms of Medicaid pending, right? But that doesn't, I agree completely, that doesn't address the systemic underfunding of the nursing home. So we as a board would have to go through each of those issues. We would have to talk about the debt. The staff started doing that. They came up with 3 proposals. They gave us the worst case scenario. And I'm glad they gave us the worst case scenario, because if you're voting to keep the nursing home, you're voting for the worst case scenario. Then our duty would be to find ways to mitigate the worst case scenario through getting the census up. The nursing home was about to hire an excellent marketer who has experience in our community placing people in the home. She withdrew from the job because she was scared we were going to sell the home. Part of the problem is that we've had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. We have a new administrator who's not even been there for 3 months. We have absolutely no idea if she could turn it around or not. The decision today is, are we going to sell the home to this buyer? That is the only question. For me, I try to think a lot about what are my personal values. And one of my values is responsibility. That is a value I take very seriously. And it is a value that is clearly not shared by this buyer. And I feel like it would be an abdication of my responsibility to sell to them. But I just want to end by saying this. The idea that I don't understand, or that we don't understand the financial implications of what we're talking about, is false. It would take time. It would take cooperation of the folks in this room. And I'll be honest, I'm fairly discouraged by that. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. I've been involved in financial situations, government financial situations that are worse than this. And I've seen, when people work together, what is possible. Thanks.
Additional discussion? Mr. Patterson.
There's a lot of uncertainty around this issue. Tonight we talk about, we don't know, what it will cost to keep this open. We don't know what the repercussions might be. But the uncertainty goes both ways. Just 2 weeks ago, when we sat in this room and had a study session, we learned that we're going to have to spend $6.7 million upon the sale of this home to pay off building bonds. We've been discussing this issue for the entire year and a half I've been on this board. My first meeting, besides the initial meeting when we appointed the chair, was a study session about the nursing home. It was a year and a half ago, and we 2 weeks ago learned that 60% of the proceeds of that sale are going to go to paying off bonds. We were told back in September that we could sell the home for $7 million and pay off our debt. If we sold the home for $7 million today, we'd have $300,000. This is something we learned 2 weeks ago. Talk about uncertainty. Look at this buyer. One simple question: how many homes does he own? Can't echo that enough. He literally does not know. Now, he dodged us with a joke about who's counting, while one of his colleagues explained in detail how there's a difference between owning the building and owning the operation, and how, the way it used to be is when there was a liability at the home, they would sue everybody. So we set it up this way. They're setting up shell corporations to avoid liabilities, different LLCs. One of the speakers earlier went through a handful of the companies. We don't even know who all the companies are at this point. We're sitting here and we're comparing the quality of their homes to the quality of our home, but we're just looking at one of the many companies they owned set of homes. One thing that is certain about this new buyer is he is going to fire staff. They are going to lay off our CNAs. They're going to lay off RNs and replace them with LPNs. I mean, they scoffed at the idea of having RNs. They came here and they used the word overstaffing. How many times? If you were meeting with somebody who's going to put their parent in their nursing home, would you complain about overstaffing? One of the biggest aspects that causes proper quality of care is by having adequate staffing. I mean, that is the amount of time somebody's going to sit in their own urine. And we don't talk about a lot as the people who are going to lose their jobs. We don't talk about that a lot. We talk about them as if they're a neglected stepchild, as if they're not our employees. Ms. Petrie earlier stated the county was paying the nursing homes IMRF for their staff. Those are our staff members. Their paychecks say Champaign County on them. Those are our staff members. You may think it's funny, but we're talking about people who dedicate their lives to caring for, washing, cleaning, caring for people that they know someday is going to die. So don't sit over there and smirk about it, Patsy. And we talk about PR, the benefit of having a private company in the PR. What we have right now is reverse PR. We sit here every month, we talk about how awful the home is. We wonder why we only got one buyer that bid the minimum. We sit here and the same people who talk about how awful this home is turn around and say, hey, you want to buy it? We've been told this whole time we're in so much debt, the only way to save it is to sell this nursing home. And then we found out 2 weeks ago that we're not even going to pay off all of our debt if we sell this home. When the voters were persuaded to vote for this, there was always discussion about, we could sell it to a nonprofit. We could sell to a nonprofit. When we brought the 2 different brokerage firms in, both of them, without hesitation, made it very clear to us that that would not be a possibility. So we talk about uncertainty. Uncertainty goes around both ways. As Mr. Storr referred to, we've had this home in our possession in one capacity or another for over 150 years. We found out 2 weeks ago that 60% of this sale is going to go to something we did not anticipate having to spend money on. And we're going to sit here and we're going to rush it. I want to hit on the point that Stephanie mentioned. There's a lot of discussion that whether it's the public comments or political hacks or News Gazette editorials that suggest that we don't understand the finance, that we can't comprehend it, and we just don't know what the numbers are. I take great personal offense to that. I sit through these meetings just as the rest of you guys do. I see those numbers just the way you do, and if you think that that doesn't sit easy with me, I had a family member recently who was a victim of child abuse. This state's attorney's office did wonderful work. And the idea that their job's going to be made harder, the idea that the people who helped my family so well just last summer, the idea that they may lose their job, if you think that I don't care about that, then you don't know me. You don't know Stephanie. You don't know the other people here that believe in preserving this healthcare institution. Because the reality is that the baby boomers are coming. The baby boomers are coming, and that's the biggest nursing home in this county. If you want to turn to the Walmart of nursing homes, you have to live with that.
Further discussion. Mr. Summers.
Very short comment. Regardless of the outcome of this vote, I think it is incumbent on all members of this board to particularly think about the comments that Mr. Steve Beckett made. We need to be able to work together better as a group and try and look the best we can through the template of somebody else's perception of their viewpoints. I think part of the issues that we have had with the nursing home and with the bad PR, I think both sides have been guilty of labeling the other. As not being caring or not being thoughtful or not being knowledgeable financially. And we need to work together better as a group. We have other issues after this vote is taken that are going to be extraordinarily important for the county. And I would just implore all of us to try and take that extra step to try and look at each other and put yourselves in that person's shoes rather than judging them.
Ms. Petrie.
I want to just clarify, especially for the folks still in the room, that the county is an enterprise fund, and by definition, an enterprise fund means the nursing home is an enterprise fund, and that means that the nursing home must pay for everything. So when I explained that the county was paying for IMRF and Social Security, that was another subsidy to the nursing home, whereas the nursing home should have been paying that. And it's that history that generated the fact of one of the two referenda that was on the ballot in 2002, that subsidy was to pay the IMRF and Social Security for the employees of the nursing home.
Mr. Rector.
Yeah, I'm a native of Champaign County. I had my grandparents in the Champaign County nursing home back in the day when it was amazing. And it's not amazing anymore. And this is a tough, tough decision for me. I have a few friends out there that are there, have been here every meeting for the last 12 months, and we don't quite agree. But I respect the heck out of them. And, you know, somebody posted the other day, it's like, this is the hardest decision the Champaign County Board has made in the last 30 years. And it's not an easy decision. And it's not an easy decision for any of us. And I echo what Mr. Summer said, that Mr. Beckett said. We got to put politics aside. We have to do what's right for the constituents of Champaign County. We have to do what's right for the residents of the nursing home. And it's, to me, it's pretty obvious. It's not an easy decision. And we all know we do this because we love public service and we care. But tonight, we need to do the right thing for the constituents and for the residents. And we have to sell and move on. Thank you.
Further discussion. Mr. King.
Thank you, Chair. So I know I've heard a lot of feedback recently, probably the past year, on the nursing home, and I would have to say it probably won't stop regardless of our decision tonight. We'll hopefully continue to hear from the public, because I think that's part of our duty as elected folks around this table. So I don't mind hearing whether you agree with me or not. I'm just glad that we're having that discourse and that conversation. I did want to thank Claudia Lindhoff and Cathy Manuel as well for some of the work that they've done. It's very visible, and it's work that I thought that they were doing in a way that showed the passion for the home, and some of what I think has impacted me and led me to sort of dig a little deeper. So I appreciate that. I also wanted to speak to the staff member that came to the meeting tonight. I believe we have seen her come before, and I really appreciate her talking about the experience of working in the home, serving our residents of our community, and being accountable to what gets put out in the media, how things get portrayed around this table or the tables here, and I really appreciate that, and I just wanted to say that for the record as well. And then to the folks that may not be, as we've said, folks don't necessarily want to get rid of the home, but they see the sale as the viable means for maintaining the home. So while I respect that, I just wanted to say, regardless of what happens tonight, I do hope that we will find a way to work together in some way, because I still think there are some terribly challenging things in our community here that will take the work of the board collectively with the cities of Urbana, who I was happy to see them come represent tonight as well, and Champaign and so forth. And so then a little deeper, while I recognize that the nursing home isn't a perfect public good, if you will, it's not something that we're mandated per se to do, but I can tell from the value that the people have placed on it in our community that it is something that the community believes is a major asset, an institution that has existed for years. And so I definitely want to start out by recognizing that. In specific to the buyers that we do have at the table, I think I wanted to be a part of the RFP process, in part because I think as we approached it, there were caveats to the conversations. We could hire a broker. It doesn't mean we have to sell. We can do an RFP. It's not binding. These are just opportunities for us to explore what the value of the home is and what we perceive the value might be by outsiders. So we have that information. And as a result, we do have one potential buyer. I asked a specific question at the meeting, the special meeting with the buyer, about ratings. And one of the things that I wanted to ask that specifically is because I believe ratings are important. And I think a lot of people here talk about the care of the home and how the ratings have slipped or how we've been able to not maintain whatever the top rating might be. And the buyer specifically said something to the fact that the ratings don't necessarily matter. There's a lot of different factors that go into the ratings process. And I took that for what it is, because I think when I view our home, I think about the ratings. I think about what the ratings mean, and it's important for me to know that we have enough staff at the home to serve the residents, which is an important part of the rating process. Overall, I know that there are challenges. I respect the fact that you can look across the board and compare our home to other homes, and there are things that we don't do well, but I think that's the nature of the business. We still have residents, 140 plus or thereabout, that continue to choose to live with us, to be with us in that home. And so whatever we do, whatever our decision is, I just want them to know that I'll still be here working to try to find solutions, to try to do what we can to look at the budget more closely, try to preserve jobs if we can, try to make sure that if there are social service dollars available, that we're putting them where they need to go. And then finally, so the challenge of public perception of this buyer at this point, I don't think it's something that we can walk away from. We know the dirt, we've seen the dirt, whether it's accurate or inaccurate. We know what we've brought to the table and in respect to their business practices. So I think at this time, as we take that vote, as someone said, we'll have to live with that decision regardless of what side of the vote you're on. And I'm prepared to live with my decision. And at this time, I will support, or I'm sorry, I won't support the sale of the nursing home. Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Furtado,
No.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
King,
No.
Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson,
No.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector, Rosales,
Yes.
Storr, Summers, Tinsley,
No.
Anderson, Clemens, Clifford, Coert, Cruz, Esri,
Yes.
and Weibel.
Yes, motion passes 15-6. Okay, Ms. Furtado?
I am on number 3.
Right, we don't need,
right.
number 2 is.
Number 2 is stricken.
That's right.
Adoption of Resolution Number 2-18-174, authorizing signatory authority to the fiscal year 2018 nursing home transition budget, and I'm going to, do I have a motion? I guess I don't get,
Actually,
sorry,
you
that's
make
right.
the motion.
I'm making the motion.
Ms. Petrie seconds it. Discussion. Go ahead.
I would like Ms. Busey to speak to this, explain exactly what we're voting on, please.
This is a transition budget that was established to allow for everything that needs to be done with regard to the sale of the nursing home. When this budget was established, it's under a separate department in the nursing home fund, and it does not have, no one at the nursing home has signature authority to spend the funds within this budget. And the sale, the process of dealing with the sale is most likely going to be dealt with by the board and administration. So this is simply for the board to give the authority to the board chair and the county administrator to take care of the expenses and all of the budgetary things that will occur that are related to the sale of the nursing home.
Thank you.
Discussion by the county board. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Adoption of resolution number 218-175, authorizing budget amendment 18-00030, Fund 104, Early Childhood Department 842 Preschool for all expansion 3. Increased appropriation $756,889. Increased revenue $756,889. Reason: this grant will support health and safety facility improvements, including ADA compliant parking lots, ramps, sidewalks, window replacements, painting and signage. Grant will also support curriculum enhancements, materials, equipment, and computers.
Second by Mr. Marsh. Oh, it's Mr. Tinsley. Thank you. Discussion. Okay, roll call.
Yes.
Goss,
Yes.
Harper,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
McGuire, Mitchell, Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Rector, Rosales,
Yes.
Storr,
Yes.
Summers, Tinsley,
Yes.
Anderson, Clemens, Clifford, Coert, Cruz, Esri,
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. If there's no objection, should we just go ahead and have Ms. Furtado do the rest of finance? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Furtado.
Adoption of resolution number 218-139, authorizing payment of claims.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Goss. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 2, adoption of resolution number 218-140, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy.
Is there a second by Mr. Anderson? Point out there's a revised list on your handout on your desk. Ms. Petrie.
I contacted Ms. Michaels earlier today, so she'd be prepared to answer my inquiry, and that is if we could get a total of the amount of the bills that are connected with the nursing home. Thank you.
Mr. Harper, you have your mic on again.
While Diane makes up, who was the second on that? Anderson.
Yep, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this point, the payments that were from fiscal year 2016 that were paid in 2018 is $31,047.87. The amounts that were from fiscal year 17 paid in 18 is $126,188.30 for a total of 2016 and 17 payments of $157,236.17. Yeah, the 126,188.30. 157, 236, 17. That was on my phone.
Any other discussion? Ms. Furtado?
Can you speak to the two new items that we received today? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Public Properties had a bit of an emergency. The satellite jail, part of the chiller went down. They had to buy some coolant. At that point also, they filled in not only the satellite jail, but Brookings and Metcalf. So because it was over $5,000, that is why they hit the list, if you will. They did not have a purchase order. Next up is Workforce Development, and that is for $17,000. I asked Mr. Delizio from the RPC, and what that was a timing issue for a subscription that was expiring, and they had to get it in right away. So that is why those two new exceptions are on the list. Not that they didn't follow the rest of the policy, but they did not get a purchase order.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 3, adoption of resolution number 218142, authorizing the fiscal year 2019 process, and we will be voting on option A.
So a second by Mr. Goss. Discussion option A and the motion. Again, this is just the process to prepare the budget for next year. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Furtado. Yeoman's worth of work tonight. Okay, let's go back to the top. ELOC, Mr. Esri.
Is there not facilities, the one?
Sorry, let's go to the very top. Mr. Harper, facilities, you have one item.
Yes. Okay. Adoption of resolution number 2018-127, approving the 10-year capital plan that Dana Brenner presented to us.
Second by Mr. Mitchell. I want to point out this actually is 11 years because they couldn't fit it all into 10 years. It's approximately $2 million a year, which is about 1.3 million less than what we put into the improvement budget for buildings. So, and also it does not include anything on the inside of the buildings, I don't think, strictly the outside envelopes. But again, to the public, this is just a plan. Any discussion on this, Mr. King? Yes, absolutely.
So the question is just what, I think you may have started to answer that. As the process goes, will these things come back before the board?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Again, it's just a plan.
Thank
and really, it was most critical things first, and so on and so forth. That's all based on the engineering study that was done a couple years ago. Further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Very good, Mr. Harper. Okay, Mr. Esri, ELOC.
Yes, thank you. First off, I move adoption of resolution number 2018-133, approving subdivision case 200-18, Lenahan Acres subdivision.
Second.
Second by Ms. Furtado. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 2018-134, approving minor amendments to Champaign County Land Resource Management Plan.
Second by Mr. King. Discussion. Mr. Esri.
This is what we do every year. This is like mainly one of the big things is updating the boundaries of the municipal areas, and there's some other stuff that are explained in the memo, but it is minor when it comes right down to it, and we do it every year.
Sometimes several times a year. Discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 2018-136, authorizing county board chair signature of annual facility inspection report required for MS4 stormwater permit with IEPA for program year April 2017 through March 2018.
The motion to approve. Mr. Goss, discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move adoption of resolution number 2018-137, approving contract of sale for county property located at 2603 Campbell Drive, Champaign.
Second by Mr. Harper. Mr. Esri.
If you haven't had much of a chance to look through, I'll try and make it real quick. This is the property in Dobbins Downs, the county owned, tried to sell it, couldn't. The Dobbins Down Association, I forget what it says here, Community Improvement Association, they had the agreement with the county to have the park. The park was used for a while, then it wasn't used and kind of fell into disrepair, It's been taken out. The last appraisal was $7,800. Sat for, I believe, over a year, or just around a year with no offers. We finally did get an offer for $6,000. At ELUC, with the committee members present, when we went into closed session, there was no objection to accepting the express to accept the $6,000. So it's here on the agenda tonight.
I think the reaction was elation. Mr. Goss.
Yeah, I didn't hear you say there will be no Realtor Commission either, so that's a little bit of a bonus as well. But that the $7,800 was certainly going to include that, so we're elated.
Any further discussion? Mr. McGuire.
I think you put a stake right through Max's heart when you said no Realtor.
All right, any other discussion on this item? Okay, see none, all in favor? All opposed, motion carries. And thank you, Mr. Esri. Let's go on to policy personnel appointments. One item, Mr. Rosales.
I move the adoption of resolution number 2018-143, appointing Jerry Like to the Urbana Champaign Sanitary District Board, term 6/1/2018 through 5/31/2021.
Second by Mr. Rector. Discussion. Ms. Furtado.
I'm going to change my vote on this. I voted to forward it last time, but I've been thinking a lot about it, and I take seriously the fact, I don't know Mr. Like, but I take seriously the fact that he is not willing to talk about lowering the stipend that they receive. I spoke with Ms. Putnam about this, Jenny Putnam, and she indicated that he could continue to serve month to month until we could find somebody who is more invested in a conversation about the financial impact of the stipend that they receive. And I think across the board, I'm going to be a lot more seriously taking things like money from the general fund and decisions like this. I think we too easily pass these kind of things.
Further discussion. Ms. Petrie.
I do concur with Ms. Furtado, and I put on the record my conversation with Mr. Like at the last meeting, and a similar conversation I had with him when I reappointed when I was chair, and I do find it disappointing that he won't even second a motion so it can get on the floor among those three individuals to at least, at a minimum, have a conversation about it.
Further discussion. Mr. Harper.
I also, after thinking about this a long time, I agree with Stephanie and Patsy. If he's not even willing to sit down and talk to people about this, I'm not going to approve his being reseated.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? I think that failed. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rosales. We have one more item, Justice Social Services, Mr. King.
All right, thank you, Chair. I think I was sort of...
No, you have to get it on the floor first.
Okay. So I move to the adoption of resolution number 2018-98, approving County Board facilitation of the collection of racial ethnicity data within the county criminal justice system.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Patterson. Go ahead, Mr. King.
So initially I was prepared to try to defer to August or a later county board meeting, but I actually,
I'd like to move to defer this until a later county board meeting. the person most likely to discuss this issue is unavailable.
We need a second on that. Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion on the deferral. Ms. Petrie.
Doesn't the deferral have to have a date certain?
No, it does not. Mr. McGuire.
I would just like to say that under the circumstances of tonight, we have a much greater opportunity to flush out some opportunities with the budget and have some better discussions that we've discussed, so I appreciate that.
I point out deferral without a date just means it'll be deferred till it's ready.
Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? See none? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. That item is deferred. I think that's it.
I have some comments, please.
Hold on. All right, we're down. Mr. McGuire, you got last comments here?
Yes, please, thank you. Obviously, others have made some positive comments about this process that we've been through, and I would like to add those myself and thank the leadership of this process for their hard work, starting with Pius, Administrator Deb Busey, Rick Snyder, of course, who isn't here, Tammy Ogden, Van Anderson, the staffs of the administration that have been asking a lot of questions, answering a lot of questions, and responding to a lot of questions. Further, I'd also like to thank the employees throughout and their families who have been concerned about their jobs, their families, but have remained committed to their work and serving the public across the Champaign County, and remain committed to the people of Champaign County, and their commitment cannot be overstated. Further, I'm very pleased that this process and discussion and support has been bipartisan and from across our local governments. And while our discussions may include some conflict and passion, I'm glad and proud that we can work together to accomplish the needs of our local communities together for the benefit of those we serve. Thank you all.
All right, we're adjourned.